performance on Leoric that game was pretty much flawless, I'd say. You don't get to see that very often. And also, if they made it to level 20, we potentially could have seen like the Silence Entomb.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Buried alive. This may be the start of a comeback for Superstars. It was a welcome victory for them. They are going to take us to Sky Temple. I do believe we're just continuing with the trend because I think that was game 4 the last time these two faced off. Yep, chosen by Superstars.
All right,
Guys,
will history repeat itself?
It's starting.
I'm starting to get scared, guys. I'm not okay with this.
It's almost uncanny at this point.
It is. And again, we have to highlight the fact that it did feel like 4 and 5 were more mental losses on the side of Spacesation Gaming, and we talked about everything that you pretty much can highlight out of game number 3 and the results that we ended up seeing. And that series, I mean, it meant something. Every series at HGC means something for your standing and your positioning, but this means everything. And the fact
BlizzCon.
and you lose that 3rd game like that, if it was a problem before mentally, I can only imagine what it is now.
And that time didn't have Nova.
That's true, and that to me is what stands out the most. Superstars beat them like in a clean macro standard game, and I think that's really impressive. One thing like to note too, SSG and Superstars are giving this their all. All of 2017, the final goal has been BlizzCon, and we're approaching that final goal. This is everything to these guys. If Superstars can take them to a game 5, that'd be insane.
Well, Glau, we've talked a lot about the mental fortitude of Spacestation, questioning how they're going to be going forward in the rest of this series. You have been a shot caller, a leader of a team for a really long time, so if it was your team in this situation and you'd had the kind of past with Superstars that Spacestation have in this series, what would you be saying to your team?
2-1 is still an advantageous position. I think that morale shouldn't be all that low, to be completely honest. Like, in that position as a shot caller or a leader in general, you can just do something along the lines of, it's not the most healthy, but you do it after the game is where the real analysis happens, but you can just be like, oh, sorry guys, that was my bad, draft was horrible, next game, and just sort of like put it all in the back of your mind and focus on the next match and come back to it. And I think if they do that right here and can control the level of composure they have, I think it'll be overall good for SSG.
Well, let's see if Spacestation can change history right now as we're heading into the draft on Sky Temple. Anything you'll be looking out for, Dread, between these two teams?
I'm still so concerned. I haven't even began to think about the draft. Like, out the gates, I give the fact that it is team fight-oriented compositions thrive here. I immediately go, that's got to be nice for Spacestation, but I feel like I said the exact same thing last time. Task Tracer is something that Equinox specifically, when he was willing to pick it in the past, really stood out. And I can see that when everything is on the line, you stick to your most primal, primitive kind of instincts. And I can see them going in that, well, now with the tasks that are gone, but immediately going like Task Tracer if that's up. Some of those kind of cookie-cutter compositions that have proven themselves throughout time. But they don't get that, and they go into the Vala.
I definitely think the trend of Vala prioritization makes a lot of sense in the current meta. It's a slow meta, and in general, you want that super strong hyper carry, so that seeing Spacestation continue to prioritize the Vala for a 3rd match in a row doesn't necessarily surprise me. The lack of prioritization from Superstars, though, is a little bit alarming. They ended up beating the Vala the last game, but one thing that I really didn't take the opportunity to highlight, but now that I think about it, was a pretty big deal. The secondary support was Lucio in the Uther Lucio composition. However, Tiger JK was on the Lucio, not in a secondary support position. And Jason, not to be overly critical of his play, but there were like 2 or 3 missed opportunities where I don't think Tiger would have missed the D-shields, not like intentionally. Like, Jason has to learn a new role essentially, and it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But I sort of am questioning whether or not the hero choices per player is correct.
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit, actually. When talking about how you can determine what is the core of double supports, depends on which one of the, is it the core support or is it the secondary support player playing those type of things? And it does make a difference. I think that's a really good point you bring up. And I honestly agree with you. I did have moments where I was like, Jason isn't up to snuff really here onto the Uther. It's not providing, but he also, in game 1, his Uther was decent-ish as well. We were able to see him perform.
Yeah,
so
he's definitely like a really good player, but in that last game, there's a couple moments where it seemed lackluster. But honestly, I think the adjustments that are going to be made, seeing the double support forced pretty early on with the Brightwing Global, Jason shows a prowess as a player in the off lane to know when he can pressure. So I'd really like to see him on the Brightwing and see what he can do in the off lane these games. It'll be cool.
And it's new Brightwing.
Dude, I'm so stoked.
I'm so pumped.
The new Brightwing is so good, Gilly.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I've been you have to be excited too. Come on.
I mean, I really do. I enjoy Brightwing a lot, actually. I mean, I know I'm kind of like known as the memeing like hate Brightwing, but she's one of my favorite
you
supports.
are? I thought that was Caldor.
It's just the fact that she.
Now you're my enemy too.
I guess. Gilly versus the world. Welcome to HGC.
Cloud's on my side, so.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on the Brightwing hype train. She, post changes, has the potential to be just a complete monster. Her kit is so strong. She's got a global. She's got good team fight presence, good disengage. She's got a little bit of everything, honestly.
And here she's going to be providing some boss support or boss control if she ends up going into Emerald Win, which is very likely considering the double support scenario. To catch things up, we've got the double global of Superstars. We know that they do like to play this kind of composition like Gale Force Esports. Double support with a Vala hyper carry for Spacestation. They're going to ban Greymane so they don't have to deal with the Greymane assassination of Vala that they had to last game.
That ban, to me, screams like respect towards the opponent.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Spacestation being willing to ban out the Greymane shows that they're willing to respect their opponents, and I think that means a lot if they want to have a shot as being a representative for North America at BlizzCon, having that maturity to ban something that the enemy team is strong at.
Are you trying to claim that North America might not always have that level of humbleness?
Oh, definitely not that humble. Including me. I'm guilty of not being that humble. But what I'm saying, I'm proud that they're humble enough to ban that away, because sometimes it's hard.
I agree with you. It can be difficult to kind of essentially go, what is the problem? And sometimes not sometimes, it's usually easier to be stubborn, stick to your ideology, and not accept that essentially my thought process was wrong before I walked in.
Does that mean they could have like grown emotionally as a team overall throughout this split? Because SSG, if you were to sit me down in a room initially, I wouldn't expect this level of like respect in a draft. And I think it's really cool that they're showing this.
I personally agree with you. I think that it is showing that kind of development from them. But we get a Tyrael Li Ming as the last rotation here for Superstars. A bit curious, but into a double support as well to have that kind of reset.
So I'm not the biggest fan of Falstad and Li Ming on the same team together. And just to elaborate on that a bit, both heroes rely heavily on their cooldowns to deal damage, and it's like an 8 to 12 second cycle of cooldowns. And against a double support composition, you have to get that kill. And if you don't have that consistent pressure that other damage dealers will give you, when you have Falstad and Li Ming on the same team, your execution has to be perfect, because if you do not get that reset, you will lose the fight. So from my perspective, Superstars is saying, we're going to play the map with double global, but when it comes to team fights, we believe that we can be precise enough to make it work. And then conversely, this is actually really interesting, seeing the Zeratul come out. The Zeratul-Tyrael dynamic, as always, is a very interesting one, due to Void Prison and Sanctification. Pretty much whatever one uses the ult first loses the matchup. So that's pretty interesting. And the Garrosh coming out, one of Casanova's best heroes. Overall, I'm pretty happy with SSG's draft.
I'm scared. I'm honestly a little bit concerned for it. The fact that they moved in the Avenue. And
it's a lot of eggs in the Vala basket.
Yes.
I agree with that. Zeratul has to play extremely well, too.
And like Brightwing, even though she is amazing, she is still a pretty vulnerable target within the current meta. There's a lot of offensive heroes on the side of Superstars that if they use their gap closers effectively, I feel like they can get on it and essentially just force either a Void or a Divine Shield, some major cooldown from Spacestation Gaming. And I don't know if that's enough for them to win the team fight necessarily, but it is something that I am concerned about here for them. And it looks like Superstars, they round out the draft with the Rhaegar. We had a very exhausted or kind of very vocal, oof, what was that?
Just the, I don't know, I don't like the Rhaegar into the Zeratul. They're already showing, like, I think VP hard counters Rhaegar in general, as well as, like, it could hard counter Sanctification. It's a skill matchup. But from my perspective as, like, a Zeratul player, I would love to be in this game, because you have Zeratul Brightwing versus Falstad. That in and of itself is an incredible matchup. You win the global. And then also having that shield allows you to win trades into Li Ming better than you would otherwise. Honestly, I was skeptical at first when I saw the Zeratul, but it makes a lot of sense, and I like it here.
The one thing for me that scares me for Superstars, or Spacestation Gaming with their composition, is they have, I mean, Vala, Brightwing, Zeratul, all extremely squishy and vulnerable. That is 3 heroes that are now prone to a Li Ming reset, which immediately, I'm like, double support, it shouldn't allow that to happen, right? And double support into a reset, the same way you're like...
Especially with an Uther and a Brightwing, those 2 supports in particular are so good at, like, Brightwing post-level 13 gives 50 physical armor and 30 spell armor. That's ridiculous. The fact that, like, you're able to consistently reduce that single target damage the enemy team is putting out while still having pretty good sustain, it'll really make it hard to get resets.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm looking, though, is the Brightwing can't get out of position.
Absolutely.
And we have seen a lot of teams in double supports struggle to allow their Brightwing to be in a position to effectively be that double support. And when you have that many squishies, you already have pretty high risk compositions. Do you really want to risk that one moment where you accidentally messed up, Dominance gets the proc, you hear the audio, and suddenly Li Ming's just flinging everything?
Well, I guess we'll find out. Game 4 is online and ready. We're going into Sky Temple between Superstars and Spacesation Gaming.
Again, the squishy composition here for Spacestation, but as we talked about, makes a lot of sense here. Burden of execution is into their hands, but they've been able to do so for the majority, I think is a safe way to say it here, of this series, other than Tomb, but we've gotten past the curse, Gilly. I'm telling you, Spacestation, they've got it.
All right, it's up to these gentlemen to pull out the stops, all stops, to stop Spacestation Gaming from being able to run away with the series and go on to Tempo Storm, who undoubtedly is watching closely who their opponent will be tomorrow. We've got a change up in the Garrosh build that I am so excited to see. I've seen this a little bit in Europe, and it makes even more sense knowing the changes. Getting body check now, and this does give a lot of great tools to Garrosh. What I wanted to mention is at level 7, getting Brute Force is a point-and-click 50% reduction of a heal. You know what that's going to be great against, Red?
I don't know, Gilly. How about you go ahead and suggest what that might be?
That would be Ancestral Healing for Rhaegar.
Is that a single target, large burst supporting heal that you would like to individually choose a single person and say, I would like that to be reduced by 50%?
That, in fact, is exactly what it is.
I think Garrosh will have a very good game this game because of that talent adjustment. As we saw who wasn't having a good game, it was Uther up there on top getting caught out.
Uther played by Tiger JK this game. We do have Jason back on Brightwing, as was the inference from Glaurung.
So with that in mind, I talked about my concern of the Brightwing with this style of composition. We already talked about Jason on that secondary support. Is he the one that they should be flexing over to that risky Brightwing or not? We'll find out here. I just am very concerned. Also, one thing I didn't talk about too much, but I was considering with this draft rotation is once we saw that Tyrael Falstad transition into the double support, I was wondering if there was a realm where they just go, what if we just try to bait the cleanse / blow up and just go the old school Hinterlands Blast Judgment one-shot onto the squishy Brightwing. Even if you don't get the kill, you at least bait enough cooldowns that most of the time you can take the fight. But
you know,
once we saw the draft, I know that's not where we're going, but it was worth at least trying to think about here.
As much as I would love a good old crispy taco, especially with the cooldown reduction now that you get from Hinterland Blast, I am a little scared about how boss fights would go. And as we know in North America, a lot of times the game on Sky Temple can come down to a singular boss fight.
Yeah, it's probably the safer route. You know, just sometimes you got to get a little bit weird. Trick's got his own wacky meta. Sometimes I've got to have the crazy Dread heroic suggestions.
If it's Trick's wacky meta, what would it be for Dread?
You know,
Dread's somewhat crazy, but within reason meta. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Probably would be a great acronym.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can get away with that one. When it comes to these shots over these shrines, it seems like it's been a pretty even trade. No team has really pulled too far ahead over the laning phase or these shots. Transition from Superstars can happen here up to mid to top, but Equinox there with a dismount. He might even turn on to Urho.
Here comes the fly in. An immediate polymorph after the fact. Spacestation are just trying to get out alive at this point with Superstars fully collapsing in, and they get away.
I'm absolutely amazed that Equinox just didn't open up with at least the dismount there. Also, keep in mind that Burrow by Stray was the only thing that made sure he kept himself from getting flipped by Casanova. Good use of the cooldowns there. And it just really was just a 50-50 trade. We're yet to see that Brightwing Zeratul come online like Glaurung was talking about, but as a dude who got to play the Brightwing with Glaurung Zeratul into the Falstad, I can tell you that this is going to be a very easy way to get kills against Falstad.
But as was mentioned in the drafting phase, for Superstars to make sure that their Falstad and Li Ming play is up to snuff and good synergy, they have two incredible players on those two heroes to do so. Yoda's Li Ming, we have hyped about ever since the mid-season brawl, even during the mid-season brawl because it was so fantastic. And then it's Hosty's Falstad. That's been a staple for Hosty as long as we've known him in Heroes of the Storm. There's the pull. Yoda gets tossed. Good night.
Good night. No reset for him. Dominance sadly doesn't work in the opposite direction either. 7 talent tiers yet to be achieved, and with the camp pressure up on top in the globals being head-to-head, I think it's time to kind of look at, does the new Brightwing change this matchup at all? Gilly, what do you think?
Oh, the 1v1?
Yes.
Well, it's not just Brightwing. Dahaka did have his auto attack and Darkstorm damage reduced, but having Bruisers here is going to be a lot for Jason to deal with, and having a Falstad here is even worse. It's the benefit of a double global to the singular.
So you're saying 2's better than 1?
In this instance.
Who'd have guessed?
1 is the loneliest number, that's what I'll say. But Equinox maybe going to make help out with this.
He's going to come in. No teleport yet. He's going to really second guess the fact that he wanted to get that reveal. I'm amazed he even showed himself without having the teleport immediately started there, but no punishment from Superstars. 4 seconds away from that bottom shrine spawning. Equinox just using Seeker in the dark, saying, Hosty, just letting you know we're here.
Saying hello. The fort has been kept alive, and knowing that both globals are up in the top lane and that Superstars really want to get that fort because they committed the 2 globals does allow Spacestation to start this tempo, and with the fort pretty low, they're likely going to be able to take that out unless Superstars can get in quickly.
Superstars, the fact that this is going to be committed overward, okay, they're transitioning the Zeratul downward for Spacestation Gaming. We'll see if we get a teleport onto the Brightwing. Just their composition excels at killing levels 1 through 9, and we talked about the squishies and how they want to make that happen, so I would be surprised if they forfeit this, and it looks like they're not going to. Good dodge from Sray, and able to get rid of that Groundbreaker, and conveniently making it out with the cleanse on Iacona.
Yeah, he will get away, but it still is a retreat from Superstars that spells the end of this bottom fort for Space Station. And Space Station were able to keep their fort in the top lane alive a little bit longer, so things working out for them in this early game of Sky Temple.
They will have Hosty still keeping pressure up on top, though, for Superstars, and an anchor with Urho there. Normally, when you have this Falstad split pushing with the Zeratul, you just flat out can't even push out this way. So Urho there up in the shrub to make sure he's checking if there's going to be any collapse whatsoever. Very clever play from Superstars, and it allows them to at least get this fort and restore the balance in structures.
Heroics are almost here for Space Station, and Superstars are hoping that they can cause a fight before that. Indomitable was used, and the phase shift from Jason. Heroics almost here as Equinox eats an orb. Will get healed back up to full. There are the heroic abilities. It is Emerald Wind for Brightwing. Everything else as we would expect. Still kind of wondering what we'll see from Uther. It is Divine Shield and Rain of Vengeance for Vala.
I was going to say, if we didn't see the Divine Shield there, it puts a lot of pressure on the pre-cleanse to make sure Brightwing keeps herself alive. Just always the double fail-safe. I cannot say there is no angle, no aspect of Heroes of the Storm competitively that I would suggest not making sure you have a double fail-safe or a double 2 sets of a tool to be able to deal with worst-case scenario here. And luckily, with Divine Shield and the cleanse, they have that to keep that Brightwing alive, make sure she gets value out of those Emerald Winds. And now it's all about those post-10 team fights.
Speaking of 10, Iacona still holding on to his heroic ability. Normally, I would say that this is a very Kona thing to do. But in this instance, can you find any reasoning? We did talk about Brute Force. It was picked up. There's even the cooldown reduction of body check that came in with the balance patch that we're currently on. Are you seeing a potential bloodlust here?
So you have the Falstad to try and force the fact that you can get the team fight that you want, but I don't think that's enough initiation. Dahaka, risky initiator. Tyrael, post-16, decent. Up until then, not so much. And with the Emerald Wind and Void sitting on the other side of the table, I just feel like it'd be too easy to disengage from. But I can see that argument where you go, well, let's just go for a Gust all-in style play. And if they do it, like we see that Gust or at least the Emerald Wind all-in there on bottom, there's going to be no Hosty for Superstars over this next shrine.
Yeah, the temples have started. Tyrael immediately gets onto the mid one. Structurally, this is a very close game. Even experience-wise, Space Station only had that little bit of an advantage. Brightwing is in the bottom, so she has the capability to phase shift up if another team fight breaks out. Space Station are going to take control of both of the temples, which is great. So great for them.
Very good for them, and they're able to zone off here now. Superstars, a couple of the members, knowing that they have Falstad alive, losing a bit of the shots and falling behind in structures, but not too much. Sraven's going to brush talk out to bottom, trying to force the 1v1. If the collapse of Space Station Gaming is fast enough, he's just going to be one dead dino. He notices that. He nopes right on out, and the 1v1 between Equinox and Falstad somehow goes 50-50.
Yeah, the rotations for Space Station have been really good, trying to make sure that they can keep up with this double global, and it all started once they were able to find the kill on Hosty. Rest of the temples being channeled now as the final shots fire from the bottom. Mid will be right behind. Superstars gets their Giants, but it's Space Station who are eking out a level lead.
So as the final shots conclude, where can we find, I'm just amazed at how little kind of aggression we've seen out of the teams, how comfortable they've kind of been willing to trade. I mean, for Superstars, I guess, or for Space Station more, it makes a bit of sense considering they're kind of chasing that of the double global. But Superstars has yet to really make anything happen. You know, they are capturing the shrines, yes, and but they're more just trying to avoid Space Station than it seems like they are to pick a fight by any means. And I just want to know what moment are they waiting for? Is
the
there
breaking point?
Yeah, what is the situation? Is it a territorial disadvantage that they're looking for? This is going to be a great one in this choke.
Yeah, Talking Trees receives the Divine Shield, turns around for a Reign of Vengeance. Superstar still trying to get that kill on Talking Trees, and not everything is set up from Space Station yet to keep him alive. Tiger JK walks in, eating a lot of the orbs, the damage. Casanova also goes in, and with all the sustainability he will stay alive, even the double up. So Superstars does try to start a fight, but Space Station disengages again, even without using Void Prison there.
And without using Void Prison, the fact that that many resources were used for Superstars does not look good towards major team fights going forward. Granted, Sanctification didn't necessarily... It had value, but it was more of an attempt to get the team fight than it was, yes, this fight is going to happen on top of Sanctification, but once again, we find ourselves where the team trying to force the fight is just unable to do so into the disengage developed by Space Station Gaming. I think that means Falstad has got to find a way to get an aggressive type of Gust if they're going to get these fights that they want.
Aggressive Gust will help, so will Holy Ground, maybe even Earth Grasp Totem from Rhaegar, just some way to, once Superstars find who they want to kill, keep them there in position long enough to get Leeming that crucial reset.
25 seconds away from the next two shrines. A fort advantage for Space Station Gaming and a full level lead as they're going to eat towards 15. Or 16, excuse me. And what that means is Superstars has to make one of two decisions. They either go for the long fight, taking the later stages of the game, or they're willing to try and force this pre-16. I feel like I would not be willing to risk that later fight. Try and take this one before so you have another secondary fight later on, hopefully away from the boss that you can end up taking here.
They do find Equinox, forcing Space Station to come in. They're going to have the phase shift, which is stopped by Dahaka, but not netting Superstars that Equinox kill on the MVP Zeratul. Trying to bring him down would be icing on the cake for Superstars trying to get back in this game, but not getting that. They still have Dahaka in the top lane, starting to channel that tempo.
But they got the shots on top so late that now Superstar or Space Station can abuse the 16 and either boss or force the fight up on top. If they want to go to the boss, it's risky considering there are two very good, you know, boss control heroics on the side of Superstars. So I'd like to see them at least get the invade up onto top. It is realistic for them to do so here. But they're going to start the boss instead. Jason even trying to see if they're going to start the night camp. Got the reveal, and he's on his way down below.
The Peekaboo revealing the area. Tyrael has been found, and it's Arrow who does have Sanctification, seeing if he can get on the point. Sray moves forward. There is the Gust, Sanctification too, but Divine Shield to make sure that Garrosh can stay strong on this point. Superstars are pushed back. The Void Prison drops.
And it's going to lock two of the members down. No drag there from Casanova to connect. Sray unable to get that ancestral healing. He's going to be the one man to fall here for Superstars. But Space Station Gaming, they've got Giants. They have this boss. They're going to take this bottom keep. And they may even look to go for core. And if they do so, they will take this series.
Space Station trying to right the wrongs the last time they played versus Superstars, get revenge, but of course it's more than that. Winning the series, getting a kill off of that Garrosh pull, and they do get it with that polymorph, making sure that Tyrael can't escape the wrath of Space Station Gaming. No Tyrael. Dahaka will be up in 6 seconds. The boss moves on to the core, and so do Space Station Gaming. They are bringing it down. They want to move on in playoffs. They want to take on Tempo Storm and defeat Superstars, and it looks like they should be able to do just that. It's down to 25% as Superstars hope to save it, but it won't be enough. Space Station Gaming moves on to the next round of playoffs.
Impressive play here from Space Station Gaming. Being able to right the wrongs, if we have put it here, against Superstars, taking the series 3-1. A bit more of what I expected the first time these teams were to play. Yes, maybe one, moment of hesitation here for Space Station Gaming, but very, very controlled from them for the most part today. And I honestly, I was impressed.
That last game was clean.
Yeah.
Yes. It was very clean, and unfortunately that does mean that Superstars are now done in HGC for 2017, but we have to highlight again the great strides that Superstars made throughout HGC Cloud.
The biggest upsets, in my opinion, that we've seen to date in HGC were from that team. Like, the fact that they're out now actually is a bit saddening, but at the same time, like, SSG has got to be on, like, top level. They've got to be feeling great.
I feel like the biggest thing, too, with those kind of upsets is that it's not even the skill caliber they were able to get. They meant a lot, too, right? This was a team that was debatably projected to be in the Crucible,
yes,
or one of our most likely to be in that avenue. And they were essentially one series where they were down and that they had to get that miracle upset to get themselves out of the Crucible. They got it, and then they didn't stop. They just kept going. And they were like, yes, we may lose in playoffs, but they avoided what everybody else was trying to, and that is the Crucible.
Now, Spacestation they did lose a game, but they were able to overcome that and win 3-1, so pretty dominantly over Superstars. How do you think that translates into their match versus Tempo tomorrow, Glau?
I definitely think that they've got to feel pretty confident going into tomorrow. 3-1 might not be the result they wanted, but you can't be unhappy with a 3-1 result, no matter who you are. So, I mean, I'm sure they're feeling pretty good. I think they might be a little bit worried that Tempo has been able to watch this best-of-5 set, but, I mean, SSG knew what they were getting into when they were preparing for the playoffs. I'm sure they have a ton of strategies that they're saving specifically for Tempo and or GFE.
Well, let's check in with Casanova from Space Station. Hey, Casa, congratulations. You guys get a 3-1 victory. You're able to stop the reverse sweep from happening after losing on Tomb. How are you and your team feeling right now?
I'm unhappy with the 3-1 result. You know, I feel good overall because we're going to move forward and be able to play Tempo tomorrow, but I think that Tomb game, like, they played really well. So it's hard. I don't want to just, like, say, oh, we didn't play well on Tomb and whatever. Like, they played really well on Tomb, and they deserve that win. But I think, you know, we came in really, really hungry for the 3-0 this time. I'm still glad we won, of course. We get to advance. Very excited to play Tempo tomorrow. I hope that should be a good series. But, yeah, overall, we're doing well.
Good. I'm excited for that series, too, versus Tempo tomorrow. I'll send you over to Dread.
I mean, my question is just about the confidence that you have towards Tempo. Are you guys, today, even though you aren't satisfied with it, do you feel like it's going to be an easy thing to overcome, to kind of just be like, you know what, we got the job done, and tomorrow's going to be a new day? Just how are you guys feeling about it?
I think Tempo, based on recent results, is probably the biggest challenge of the gauntlet. So I'm confident that if we can overcome Tempo, we can have a very good shot at BlizzCon.
That's awesome. Do you feel like that's because Tempo has been so successful as of late? I just wonder if you can give a little bit more on that.
I think the main thing was, like, Tempo was in a slump at the start, and towards the end of this this part, they've been kind of bringing it back and starting to look a lot stronger, having some life breathe back into them. And I think it's kind of the reverse for GFE. I think GFE started out really strong, and now they're kind of slumping. So it's not to say GFE is not a great team. I just feel in the current form, Tempo's a stronger team. So if we can get through them, I think we've got a good shot.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Glarong, you got anything?
Not really any questions, mostly just a comment. Like, as you personally have made the transition from melee assassin to more of that warrior-esque role, how has that, I mean, I guess this isn't really the timing for this question, but how has that transition been for you at this point, now that everything is on the line for BlizzCon? Do you feel confident in yourself as a warrior now?
I think having this this phase under my belt, getting to this point, I feel like I'm a more consistent player overall on the warrior role, which I think was my big issue early in the season. And I feel that now I'm much more confident in these playoff matches. I feel like today I had a pretty good set. I had some pretty glaring mistakes in game 1 and 2, but it was just like 2 big mistakes. It wasn't like I was constantly messing up. So
yeah, from my perspective, I feel like you're really good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot. Actually, it feels good just having other people, other people say it. So it's good. Thank you.
Well, Casanova, congratulations again. Good luck tomorrow versus Tempo Storm. And if you'd like to give some shout outs, now is your opportunity.
Yeah, just shout outs to the whole team. Everyone came and brought it today. Shout outs to our manager, Chrissy. Shout outs to Space Station. Shout outs to Huge, our coach. Yeah, thank you guys. Shout out to you. Always the shout outs to Twitch chat, Monk-ass.
I'm giving you a shout out for your Brightwing Silly, so thank you for that. You can join our Brightwing Club. Thanks, Casanova. 3-1 victory for Spacesation means they are moving on to play Tempo Storm tomorrow. I'm very excited to see how Tempo comes into the playoffs. As you can see, Spacestation, that match versus Tempo, they're just one away from getting to Gale Force, but going through Tempo Storm will be a very large hurdle.
Especially taking into consideration the fact that Tempo Storm arranged a last-minute boot camp for the roster.
Yes.
All of them are in SoCal right now, preparing it, I think, they're preparing at a LAN center in SoCal, which is kind of like what we mentioned in the European broadcast for Liquid. Being in person adds a really big advantage, and I'm curious to see how much Tempo has grown because of that.
And they also, as of last week, when the results maybe didn't matter as much, they were very focused on moving forward. Their entire perspective was it's about the playoffs. And so I'm very excited because the boot camp, because the hype they kind of put into it. They've put a lot of thought and effort into it. And I'm expecting kind of a new version of Tempo Storm as of post, the struggles with the role swap.
Yeah, the role swaps seem to have finally stabilized. Seeing Fury back on main warrior is awesome and allows Caterpillar and Som to have that off-lane synergy, whoever ends up being in the range position at the same time. So don't miss that one for sure. Also, after our broadcast tonight, in a little bit, will be the conclusion of the Australia-New Zealand regional. We'll find out if Nomiya is going to once again represent ANZ at the HGC finals, or if we'll get somebody new, like maybe Darksided. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today at HGC. We'll see you tomorrow.